Hi, welcome to the Pre-Snore History Hub. This video is all about Thomas Sydenham and his beliefs on observation and diagnosis. So, who actually was Thomas Sydenham? He was nicknamed the English Hippocrates. He was a well-respected doctor from London in the 1660s and 1670s. The theory of the four humours was still being used at this time during the Renaissance, but it was starting to lose popularity. Sydenham's work was very important in moving medicine away from the traditional ideas of Galen and Hippocrates. Sydenham refused to rely on medical books when diagnosing a patient's illness. He managed to make progress on how to diagnose diseases and place great importance on careful observation of patients. So, what were his ideas on observation and diagnosis? One of Sydenham's most controversial ideas was that diseases were like plants and animals, and that they could be organised into different groups. So, for example, if you have measles or chicken pox, they can both be categorised together as they both contain spots, but they are essentially still different diseases. According to the four humours, a patient's disease was personal to them, which differed from person to person. It was caused by a number of factors, including the weather, diet, and the patient's particular balance of humours. This meant that treatment was varied from person to person. Sydenham did not believe this. He encouraged his students to note down a patient's symptoms and look for remedies to tackle the disease, not the individual person. The nature of the person had little to do with the disease. This was a very modern idea and laid the foundations for a more scientific approach to medicine from the 18th century onwards. Due to a number of factors, Sydenham was not able to isolate and identify the various microorganisms that caused the disease he was observing. However, he was able to identify that measles and scarlet fever were a separate disease. So, what were his new approaches to diagnosis? Sydenham stressed the importance of bedside practice and observation. Sydenham was a Puritan, and his studies at Oxford were cut short by the Civil War, during which he served with the Parliamentary Army. He was probably seriously injured during the war, which may have prompted his interest in medicine. Sydenham was finally licensed as a physician in 1663 and favoured practical experience over book learning. He developed the concept of species of disease to improve medical diagnosis by describing and classifying different illnesses. Whilst Hippocratic doctors would treat each individual symptom, Sydenham believed in finding the root cause of all the symptoms and treating that. For example, if you had measles, you might have a fever, vomiting, spots on the skin, etc., but they all need to be treated as one illness, not as several symptoms. This was hugely significant as it paved the way for new medical studies to take place, and the new invention of the printing press meant that many of Sydenham's key ideas were widely circulated. So, what were his ideas for treatments? Sydenham believed that treatments of disease varied from person to person. Sydenham had some interesting treatments. Usually, patients were used to physicians ordering bleeding or purging and were delighted when he suggested roast chicken and a bottle of wine to restore their strength as a treatment. For smallpox, he prescribed an airy bedroom, light blankets, and cold drinks instead of purging. He also popularised the use of cinchona bark from Peru to treat malaria. Cinchona contains quinine, which is still used to treat malaria today. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pre-Snore History Hub, and our next video will be about the Royal Society.